Welcome to Pleasure Doing Business with You, a podcast showcasing young Black entrepreneurs who have paved their own ways to success. I'm your host, Megan Sayles, business writer at Afro News and Report for America Corps member. Today we are talking to brothers William and Donta, who recently started their own tequila company, Los Hermanos Tequila in 1978. It is Baltimore's first Black and veteran-owned tequila company. Hello, Donta. Thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today. For those listeners out there, William might be joining us soon, but we're going to get right into some of the questions. So first, Donta, can you just introduce yourself to the listeners?
Sure. Thank you for having me. I'm Donta Henson, the CEO and co-founder of Los Hermanos Tequila, and I am originally from Pasadena, Maryland.
Gotcha. And so my first question that I have is, was tequila always your choice of alcohol? Like, I'm personally not a tequila person, really. I sometimes have it, but I've always been more of a vodka person. But has tequila always been your choice of alcohol?
Actually, no. So out of my family of my wife, my brother, and my wife's cousin, I was the last person on board with tequila. Like, initially, I think I was more of a whiskey person. I just like a good whiskey cocktail, and that's, with my flow. But 2020 really gave us the opportunity to venture out a little bit. And the tequilas that my wife and my brothers was drinking was like, it was okay, but it was like really not my jam until, we kind of got into a rhythm where we had sampled enough different tequilas where we could start to discern what was good and what was not. And then it really kind of opened the door to me. It's like, oh, like there's a lot more to tequila than Jose Cuervo or 1800, and once we got past that and we started really getting into it, like, okay, now this is actually the first alcohol that I could drink straight, like really could just sip with. And I have never found that in vodkas or whiskeys or anything like that. So that was what really kind of won me over with tequila.
Gotcha. So how did, kind of just garnering this interest during the pandemic, how did you and your brother transform that into, venturing into starting a tequila company?
Sure. So 2020, when the when all the shutdowns started to happen, my brother was on his work schedule where he would work 2 weeks on, he would work 2 weeks off. And so during the time that he had off, he would come to the house, he would bring a bottle of tequila, we would sit around, we would try it, and we would just hang out. And it was like, okay, well, the next time you come, I'll go buy one. And we just, then the next time after that, my wife would buy a bottle. And so we just got into a routine. Somebody will buy a different brand of tequila. And going through this, maybe for like 4 or 5 weeks, we really kind of got to go through a lot of different tequilas and try a lot and learn, what's the difference between a Blanco or a Reposado or the difference in the flavor profile. So we became a little bit of connoisseurs like really quickly. Trying all the different brands was good, but my brother called me one day and he was just so excited about this tequila he had found. And I'm thinking to myself, like, wow, so it really can't be that good. He was like, no, that good. Like, you need to try this. And I'm like, okay, if it's that good, to bring it to the house, let's see what it is. And lo at the door with the Casamigos Reposado. Now, I've never heard of, this is 2020, like maybe June. So by that time, never heard of Casamigos. What is this? So he's like, this is George Clooney's tequila. You never heard of this? Like, no, I've never heard of this. So I said, all right, let's try it. And when I tried it, hats off to those guys. Like, it was a difference. Like, this Reposado was not like any other Reposado I've tried. And I was like, okay, I can see why you're so excited. And so my brother was a pretty much unofficial spokesman for Casamigos. So he would tell all his friends and his co-workers about it. They would try, they would get excited, and they were coming back to him. And he would, come to the house and he would just tell us all these stories of all these different people. He turned on the Casamigos, and then like the light flat, it just clicked in my head one day. And I was like, bro, how many cases of I got a t-shirt or nothing? And we laughed and we joked about it. And it was just like, I'm like, bro, like we probably can get our own and we probably could do something because I see you could sell it. And we just laughed it off that night as just a thought. But like 2-3 days later, like the thought just wouldn't leave. Like, and so I'm just keep mulling this over. And I said, okay, let me not let a good idea potentially get past us because I didn't take it seriously.
Mm-hmm.
So what I did was I started getting online, started doing research about brands, about distilleries, and the whole nine, and and just to try to learn as much as I could. And I started reaching out to different distilleries to ask, were they taking on new brands? And at the
Mm-hmm.
time, half the distilleries that I reached out to, actually more than half, was like, no, they weren't taking on new brands because they were turning over their equipment to make hand sanitizers. The other half who said yes, high minimum order, starting out the gate with, or they would tell me, you have to go to Mexico to get the juice. You get
Mm-hmm.
the juice, you bring it back to us and we can distill it. And, I just was like, okay, well, I'm smart enough to know that I don't need a middleman. So if I got to go to Mexico to get the juice, I might as well just go to Mexico and get the whole thing done.
Right.
Right. And so I started, get back on Google. Let me go look up distilleries in Mexico and try to find out, what I can learn about a few of them. And I reached out to a few, and a couple of them came back. And the one that we initially liked the most is called Casa Maestri. And this was a family-owned distillery. And they were like 3 generations of distillers. And so that's something that I like, because I knew for us coming in from the beginning, new to the industry, with limited funding, we didn't want to kind of get in with big or partner with a big corporation where we would kind of get pushed to the side.
Exactly.
So, and so that's what it does. And we talked to them, and we liked them, they liked us, they want to work with us. So we said, sure, and this now we're probably like August, September of 2020. And so, after we had a few meetings with them, we was like, okay, we can do this. So we can really, make this happen. And so I told my brother, I said, they're giving us 2 options. They can send the samples of tequila up to us and let us try out their tequila and decide, how to craft a flavor profile, or we can take the trip. And I don't know if people really remember, but mid to late 2020, like a lot of people weren't flying, right? Like there was a lot of people really skittish about traveling, but I was like, man, this is a once in a lifetime opportunity. I was like, we have to go. And, he was like, okay, go, like, let's go. And so I don't think he took me seriously at the time. He was like, okay. And then, so, I booked the trip and I was like, let's go. So I called him and said, hey, we going to Mexico in like 2 weeks. And he was like, what? I'm like, yeah, like, let's go. And so, we went down there, took us on a tour of the distilleries and, all the processes, where it's stored, how it's made, the agave fields. And we came back to the tasting room and they had three different samples of Blancos and 3 different samples of the Reposados. And, we kind of got to choose our flavor profiles, the ones that we liked. And while we were there, we sat down, we picked the bottles, we picked the labels, and we, did the whole thing. And like, I think that was the first full day we were in Mexico. And then the second day, the tour guide that we had with us, he kind of took us out and gave us a little bit more education about tequila and about how it's going. So he took us around and provided, I can't even say a lot more education than what we had going in. And so I think that was like the next 2-3 days that we were there. Like we were just hanging out with this guy and he was taking us around and to smaller distilleries, to get the little bit more intimate feel and get a little learning more, to the agave fields to see it. And it was like a really great experience for us. And then after that, we came back and was like, okay, like, let's go. So we did all the paperwork and, almost a year later, we finally hit the market.
Yeah. While you were there, like in Mexico, what is like something that you learned about tequila that most people like wouldn't know?
The one thing that I think people who aren't in this community doesn't know is that it takes an extremely long time to make tequila. So the agave that's used has to be grown anywhere from 6 to 14 years before it's harvested. Wow. So that's a tequila is a long-term project to get to the market. That agave is grown that long. Once you get the agave, it's cooked anywhere from 1 to 2 days before it gets shredded, before it even goes to fermenting. And when you start getting into the reposados and añejos, then you're talking anywhere, or the extra añejo, it's anywhere from 3 months to 3 years aging process. Wow. So like there is a tremendous amount of time and labor that goes into, getting tequila to market. And so that's something I would have had no idea of before I actually got there. And that's also one of the reasons that in Mexico, like people really don't take shots for the tequila now.
Mm-hmm.
Like, right, like because for them, the farmers, okay, let me back up a little bit. So when the agave is grown, the agave is tended to like you would tend to your garden. And when people see the humidors out there, like the humidors are the guys who come in at the end that shave the pinions down. They are literally working these fields every day for the 6 years or however long until that agave is harvested.
Oh my
like
goodness.
These guys are out there in these fields all day, working these fields. And then at the end, when the agave is growing and harvested, then the humidor comes and you'll see him like shaving off and shaving it down. That's the end process. So for all of the work and the time that goes into getting that tequila there, like the people in Mexico really take it seriously. And so for them, they don't do shots, right? Like, because like for them, it's like really, you're disrespecting all the work and all the labor that goes into this drink. And so for them, like you'll see a lot of times that people drinking in champagne glasses, or they'll, take the time with a sniffer to really, enjoy that experience. So again, that was something that I would have had no idea of just being on this side of the border.
Yeah. So it's really about enjoying, the flavor and all the hard work that went into just even creating the tequila. And you mentioned some of like the other brands that you had taste tested and things like during the pandemic. What do you think makes your tequila brand stand out from others?
I think the biggest thing about ours is just the way that the process, the way it's cooked. So in a lot of mass produced tequilas, they use pressure cookers, and the agave might be cooked for 24 hours and it's out of there to keep it moving, to keep this production line moving. Our distillery still uses a traditional method where they slow roasted tequila. So the the agaves could be cooked anywhere from 26 to 54 hours. So they cook it at a real slow rate. So that way it breaks down all of the sugars in the pinas, and it doesn't caramelize. So when they go to shredding and fermenting, it comes out and it makes it a very smooth and a very sweet taste that they get by going slow, by using that slow process. So I think that's one of the biggest differences between us and a lot of these mass-produced tequilas.
Gotcha. And where can listeners go to buy your tequila right now?
That's an excellent question. Right now, Los Hermanos 1970 is available in 24 locations. We literally just went from 3 at Monday to 24 now at the time of this taping.
Wow.
I would tell people, because there's way too many locations to list, but go to tequilaloshermanos.com and you can click on the locations and you can find, we have 22 locations in Maryland and 2 in DC.
Okay. Wow. It's crazy because like for the listeners out there who don't know this, I wrote a story about this tequila brand like a while back. And when you were just starting out, you did not have this many locations. So that's amazing with that expansion. How do you like being in business with your brother? Like, what's that like? I have a brother. I always say I can't imagine working with him, but how is it for you and William?
So for me, I think despite us being brothers for the last 43 years, I think this experience has given me the most intimate look of my brother. Like I thought I knew my brother before this, but being in business where we are constantly in contact and we're constantly working together, like I learned a whole nother side of my brother that I don't think I would have been just kind of hanging out with my brother. And so I think that being this close and having to work this much together, I definitely think it made us with a stronger bond.
Gotcha. And running this tequila business and even just in starting out and everything, what do you think has been, the most challenging part about this process?
As I've alluded to before, I think the timing, coming into the business, I think we were thinking that we would just run it like any other business and everything would be just in time, just in time shipping. So when we're down to, outlast whatever amount of cases. Okay, put an order in, and a couple weeks there, a month later, it'll be here. But that was absolutely wrong assumption on my part. What we've come to understand is that essentially you have a craft product that's being built from scratch each and every time you place that order. So outside of the tequila, which the distillery has, everything else has to be ordered. So they have to order the labels, they have to order the bottles, right? And so if there's a delay with the label manufacturer, then your order is delayed. Or if there's, again, like the supply chain, if there's an issue with the trucking, then your order is delayed. If something's going on at the warehouse, right? Like, and all of these things, I don't think we initially took into account coming off. We just assumed that this is a big supply chain, everything will move smoothly. And so for us, like when we first came out, people was excited, we were excited, and it went, really fast. And then it was like a month or so where we were out, and people were like, what's going on? Where you guys at? And we were like, listen, it's not us, it's the supply chain. Like the rest of the world, we're a small business. We're stuck in that supply chain thing. And so I think if I would have, hindsight, we definitely would have tried to go bigger earlier. But I was more cautious, and I was just like, let's just start small, because if we start small, you make a mistake, it might be $1,000 mistake. But if you jump out there big, you make a mistake, then it might be a $10,000 mistake.
Yeah.
And so I really didn't want to go that way from the beginning.
Gotcha. William, what do you think has been most challenging so far in running Los Hermanos Tequila?
The funding part for right now is way more expensive than I thought it would be. And by the brand being so successful, the demand got huge before we can expect it. So now it's like we need the demand to match the supply to match the demand. So that was kind of surprising. Like, I'm happy it's successful and it's moving the way it is. Like, so it's a good problem to have, but I was like, wow, I was thinking too small when it purchasing wise. The numbers we was thinking way too small. Like, my goodness, like the kind of numbers we need to be where we're at is a lot more, but we're in a good space. So I think with time, just a little bit more time, we'll be right there. So I kind of like where we are business wise, because it could be sitting on the shelf and no one was touching. So now that it can't stay on the shelf and it's in high demand, we're figuring out how to increase the revenue and get the product up. So that's the biggest thing so far with me.
Gotcha. And so, now that you have been in business for a little bit, what pieces of advice would you offer to somebody that's interested in starting a tequila company? Like, what's something that you would have wished you knew before, maybe the process?
One thing, like Donta said, was we could just write a whole book. Here's a whole pamphlet. Like, seriously, bro, this are what you're going to expect. These are kind of delays. This are kind of headaches. These are kind of phone calls, the kind of emails, a whole ton of stuff like that. Like, we could tell them so many things. Like, man, like Donta said, have the funding. If we get it, we'll borrow this kind of money. Try to start with as much money as you can and use it sparingly. Like Donta said, start small decision-wise, but at least have the funding there. So that's so many things like that. I would just tell them, man, it's going to be a headache. And my brother, he really gets the brunt of those emails and the calls back and forth being the CEO. So he really gets a ton of that. I mean, I remember one time he was like, bro, this is getting to be a little bit much. And, kind of like, I don't know if I'm going to do this. And I was like, man, you did so many steps, bro. You did 23 steps of 25. Like, you did it. Like, you really did it. Cause I see it now. You really made me see, like, no, we really come too far now. So now I'm really on board. We ain't going back now.
Yeah.
So I'll take the headaches with you, man. And I got your back, and let's grow. And it's surprisingly doing extremely well. I'm just so excited. I'm still kind of in awe at times, like, that's our tequila in the stores. When I see pictures on Instagram and stuff, I'm like, damn, that's Al. We were just in the living room talking about that one day. Just a vision. And then from ideas to shirts to actually having it, and it's winning awards, and it's in stores, we're in the news, and we're talking to you. I'm still in the awe phase.
Gotcha. Dante, what type of advice would you offer?
My first advice to anyone interested in this business or in the spirits business, period, it doesn't have to be tequila, is go talk to a distributor. Try to get yourself a meeting with a distributor first.
Mm-hmm.
I think because the distributor is the person who's going to bring any spirit on board, and they're going to be the people who are going to push your product. And so they, usually what I found, most distributors are former salespeople for Moet Hennessy or Diageo and all these people. They, leave the industry and they started their own distribution companies.
Mm-hmm.
So they have a lot of insight into how the industry works and, what typically sells, what doesn't, and what do you need. So because I think a lot of people come into the business with a certain frame of mind and a certain idea for a product. But there's a lot of other people on the other side of that who can help you shape that before you get to market. Because
Mm-hmm.
the last thing you want to do is spend a lot of money designing a product that it looks unique, it looks so great, it's wonderful, it's so custom, that you run into a problem where you invested all this money to the product and you get to a distributor, and they tell you like, yeah, we can't sell that.
Okay.
That's not going to sell.
Mm-hmm.
People are not going to react to that, right? And so now, most people will be crushed by that, and
Yeah.
you get frustrated, you keep running. So that's my biggest thing. Like, and getting a hold of a distributor is not going to be easy, but that's the task. That's the tough task. I think that you have to be able to withstand in order to be successful.
Yeah. So what is it? I mean, this is obviously like an amazing accomplishment, especially starting kind of during the pandemic and everything. What does it mean to the both of you to be the first Black and veteran owned tequila company like in the Baltimore area?
To me, honestly, I don't think this could have happened without COVID. Honestly, as terrible as COVID is like, because the world slowed down.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of phone calls that people gave us that probably wouldn't otherwise. And I know for a fact there's a lot of time for people who did answer the phone. They gave us a lot more time than they would have otherwise. So outside of COVID, like, I don't know if we even would have took the time to do this, right? Like, because everybody has, we have jobs, we have kids, we have, social lives. So I think, it couldn't happen without that. But to be the first, I think that we are just excited, or let me say that I'm just excited that people have responded to us, like, because again, we could have been the first that went nowhere. Like, we could
Yeah.
have been the first that had a product that was, like my brother said, that was sitting on shelves. So, but that wasn't the case for us, like, we came with a product that people love and that we loved. And so that part is just the way that people respond back to us. I think that makes it all worth, being in this business.
Gotcha. How about you, William?
For me, my 17-year-old son, me and him have conversations, and it feels good because through the whole process, through him going to school and me doing this, we talked about every step. Like, one day, me and your uncle gonna make it tequila, and we're gonna make this happen. So a few months later, we making T-shirts and logos, and I'm like, okay, you see the process? Like,
Mm-hmm.
now we're at T-shirt levels, and you're like, yeah, I see y'all. And then one day the actual bottles arrive. He like, dang, he's seeing it. And then he see me on Channel 11 or he see me on the news, and he like, you really talked it into fruition. Like, you said you was gonna do that. So
Mm-hmm.
the inspiration is transferring to him in school and the things we do. That was one of the biggest things for me. That
That's
conversation with
awesome.
me and him every day. And he's like,
Mm-hmm.
damn, like, my dad really did it. So I'm like, yeah, your father owner of a business, of a
Mm-hmm.
tequila brand in the city. So he's like, wow. My daughter, she's 15. She's really nonchalant. She's like, wow, but she's like, yeah, okay. Yeah. Like,
Mm-hmm.
she's totally different. But for people to call me or they see me in the streets and they be like, hey man, where that tequila at? And I'll
Yeah.
be like, wow, like, where that tequila at, man? Where can I get it? So I'm like, damn. And then I get in the car, turn the radio on, like, damn, we really did accomplish that. And that just feels good to know we accomplished that. I wish my mom was here
Mm-hmm.
to see it, because just the fact that we actually successfully accomplished that is like, it feels good. It feels good, man. So I'm a true believer. You know, you hear people telling the story. You can believe.
Today
you can
we
do
are
anything,
talking
you
to
can put your
brothers
mind to
William
this
and
and that.
Donta,
And
who
you're like,
recently
yeah,
started
you
their
saying
own
that.
tequila
And then I'm
company,
now
Los
like,
Hermanos Tequila in
I second that.
1978.
You're right.
It is Baltimore's first black and
Yeah.
veteran-owned
It is
tequila
definitely
company.
so true to be an owner, like not working for a company, but I look at Patron and Avion and Agent Casamigos, like I look at Ross with his wine and I look at Diddy with his Ciroc, and I hold my bottle up sometime in the mirror at night, like, yeah, I got my
I'm
own
an owner
tequila
too,
bro.
yeah.
So it feels great to accomplish that, and then to do it with my brother, and that made it more special. Like me and my brother. So I mean, I'm in awe. I'm still in the awe phase, but it feels good.
Well, I want to congratulate both of you in this endeavor. And now, like at the end of the podcast, I kind of like to switch things up a little bit and just ask like a random question so we can stop talking shop.
Right.
So in the spirit of the holiday season, what is your favorite Christmas song of all time, if you have one?
Wow. A favorite all time is close for me. Is between the Jackson 5 Christmas song, Michael Jackson Christmas song, and it's a version of Luther Vandross has a Christmas song. I can't think of it. That it's a Luther version that I can't think of. But Luther has a Christmas song, and I think that between those two, they my all-time favorite.
Gotcha. What about you, Donta?
I think for me, hands down, is "This Christmas" by Donny Hathaway. Like that's just for me, like that's Christmas time when you hear that song, like and that little jingle and the horns, like every year that does it for me.
Gotcha.
Right.
Well,
What is yours?
My favorite, it's really hard. I think This Christmas is definitely like at the top. I still love All I Want for Christmas Is You. It'll always be one of my favorites.
That's Mariah Carey?
Yeah.
Okay. I feel that. Okay.
Yeah, gotta give some respect to Mariah for that Christmas song.
That's okay. Definitely.
Yeah. Well, thank you both so much for joining me on the podcast today. It was a pleasure doing business with you.
Thank you for having us. We are so humbled to be on.
Thank you.